Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz, and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe. And maybe check out my Facebook page, where this whole thing began, as well. All relevant links are in the description below, and of course, if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of the characters featured in my stories, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Alrighty then. So, welcome. And what is up, Buttercup? Are you having a good day or a bad day? Whichever your answer, please allow me to distract you from your life and tell you a story, a Simsational story. Before I begin though, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done. But I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with, let's go. Today's story is from the Fundamentalist Ferguson family, and we're at chapter 1. All subsequent chapters will be put into a playlist on my channel, where you can hear the entire story in chronological order. So without further ado, let me introduce you to the Ferguson family. Cameron and Addison Ferguson were wed in a traditional religious ceremony at their local church. Their vows were the same vows their forefathers had used, and they were secure in the strong belief that that added extra weight and meaning to the words. Both had been raised by conservative religious parents who had helped arrange the marriage, and this was their very first kiss. While everyone is, of course, entitled to their beliefs, and the Ferguson family respected that, they lived in a different world to that which many other Sims did. They observed the Sabbath each Sunday and attended weekly worship ceremonies, as well as living as holy and virtuous a life as they could possibly manage throughout the rest of the week. Both Cameron and Addison came to one another as innocents on their wedding night. They had never been alone together before now, and at first it was a little awkward. Cameron, at least, had some idea of what he was doing. His father had given him a speech, and his best friend, who was married the year before him, had had some advice as well. But Addison was completely unprepared for what was ahead of her. She needn't have worried, though. Cameron was kind and gentle with her that first night, and forevermore after that. He had been raised by the chivalrous values of the church, and to him, Addison was his queen and a lady, never to be mistreated, even in anger, least of all in lust or love. She was nervous, of course, and so was he, but this was all natural and what God intended and wanted for them. They just had to follow their instincts. The Fergusons soon settled into their new married life. Addison was an accomplished cook and took happily to the kitchen, excited to show off her skills and impress Cameron. Like hers, his mother had always dominated the kitchen, and it was an experience being introduced to someone else's flavour palette. If Cameron was being honest, he didn't always enjoy it, and he missed his mother's meatloaf, but he was far too polite to say so. Unlike Addison, Cameron had gone to college during their engagement period. At the behest of his father, he had studied biology and graduated with a degree with honours. It had been hard work too, as his father believed he should support himself now he was an adult, and so he had had to live alone on campus in a dormitory, surviving on whatever meagre wages he could earn from a combination of part-time and odd jobs. It had all been worth it in the end though, as after he graduated, Cameron was rewarded with a degree that helped him land a job at the Willow Creek Hospital as a general practitioner. He was not overly passionate about medicine, but the money was good, and it was what his father had wanted him to do. Cameron had been raised to respect his elders, and he believed that his father knew what was best for him, better than he did. Both Cameron and Addison believed in and chose to adhere to traditional gender roles. They understood that not everyone lived the way they did, and of course they respected that and would never want to force their way of life on anyone else. This was just what they were raised to, and they hoped to raise their children in the same way. They were not overly forward about their beliefs with others, but they were as strong in their faith and conviction as they were polite about it. While Cameron went to work at the hospital, Addison stayed home to take care of the house and garden. She had sadly been her parents' only child, and upon their death had inherited the family home which they now lived in, and it was a lot of work to keep it tidy. The house was large and beautifully decorated, but the Fergusons weren't wealthy yet and sometimes struggled to make ends meet. This was why Addison grew all their fresh produce. They wanted to be as self-sufficient as possible. To this end, Addison also took up a number of eco-friendly hobbies to fill her time with, from bug and beekeeping to candle making, and of course gardening. She enjoyed the creative challenge of it all, and of besting her past self time and time over again. It was more work than she initially imagined to make even a simple candle, let alone one with a complicated mould or emotional effect. But that just made the challenge all the more addictive. Addison was also an accomplished knitter, and sold her various craft items on Plopsy to try to contribute to the household bills. At first, Cameron had doubted that it would be of any use, and was just indulging her when he gave his permission for her to do it. But surprisingly, Addison was often able to earn almost $300 a week from her Plopsy store. She never felt so much pride as the day Cameron thanked her for having helped him make their rates payment. Soon after their marriage, just 6 months after, actually, Addison felt herself feeling sick in the mornings, and began to suspect that she may be with child. She and Cameron didn't believe in contraception. The good Lord would bless them when and if he saw fit, and who were they to interfere with his will? So it wasn't really surprising. Addison was just 20 years old, and she was about to become a mother. Cameron was less than pleased to hear about the unexpected pregnancy. How were they going to be able to afford this? He had only just started at the hospital, and although he'd already been promoted once, he still had a lot to learn and earn. He knew that they would never be given more of a burden and a challenge than they were truly ready for, but it was still all happening a lot earlier than he'd hoped for. Addison, on the other hand, was delighted to finally be pregnant. It was her sole purpose in life to be a wife and mother. Without a child to care for, her life had felt half empty and unfulfilled. She had not been unhappy exactly as just a wife. In fact, it had been lovely, really, to have had that time with Cameron, alone, to learn each other's ways. But she was ready to move on now. Addison really did love her life as a housewife and a mother-to-be. She was well aware that many women in her position would feel trapped and want to escape the traditional gender roles she was happy to comply with. But that was the thing. She was happy like this. She found so much pleasure and satisfaction in her simple life. Taking care of her house and husband actually made her feel rather proud, as opposed to imprisoned. Addison went into labour at 3 a.m. on a Monday morning on the first day of autumn. She and Cameron rushed to the hospital and were admitted immediately. And for the first time in his life, Cameron got to experience the other side of work. He wasn't sure he liked it. Dr. Wren kept telling him to calm down and that everything was normal. But everything wasn't normal. What was that on the screen? Was that another baby in there? It sure was. Unbeknownst to them all, Addison had been pregnant with twins, a boy and a girl. After the initial shock wore off, she and Cameron cradled their little babies in their arms and thanked their God for the blessings he had heaped upon them. Cameron had not been expecting this, but as they had chosen not to know the baby's gender, he luckily had names for them both, Elijah and Esther. And that brings us to the end of Chapter 1 of the Fundamentalist Ferguson family. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. Or like I said, look us up on Facebook. Bye!